Because of the COVID situation, we've had to do our meetings streaming through our YouTube channel, and we had just a little difficulty getting set up today. So it is 6:08, and I will call the Monday, January 11th, 2021 Yellow Medicine East School Board meeting to order. First item is to seat our new board members, and they are Dawn Odegaard and Matt Zempel. So it is an honor that you are elected to guide the education of our community's children. As you recite the oath of office, you assume a tremendous responsibility as a director of our school district with the duties empowered by the Minnesota legislature. This power puts you and the other members of our school board in the position of being both morally and legally responsible for equitable, quality education of every student in the district. In carrying out this responsibility, you will be asked to fulfill the roles of vision, structure, accountability, and advocacy. In providing vision, the board, with extensive participation of the community, envisions the community's educational future and then formulates the goals, defines the outcomes, and sets the course for the public schools. To achieve the vision, the board establishes a structure and creates an environment designed to ensure all students the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. Because as a board, we must be accountable to the community, we must ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children. As board members, we serve as education's key advocate on behalf of our students and our community schools to advance the vision of our schools. Furthermore, we must strive to work together with the superintendent and staff to lead the district toward fulfilling the vision we have created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills and knowledge, citizenship, and personal development. So at this time, I'd like both of you to stand and recite the acceptance of office together.
Under the I swear.
Yep.
I swear, affirm, that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, and that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the office of school board member, of Independent School District number 2190, to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you and welcome. So next item is our Pledge of Allegiance. Our flag is right there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll do roll call of board members. Start with Ron.
Ron Winter.
Dawn Odegaard.
Amanda Lacey.
Sharon Rupp.
Sonia Peterson.
Matt Zempel.
Jeremy LeBlanc.
All members are present. Next item is approval of the agenda. I have one addition that I would like to add under item number 13, discussion items. I'd like to add 13.1, Mr. Rich Schneider's contract. With that addition, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second by LeBlanc.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Reading of the YME mission statement will be done by Sonia.
Our mission is to provide a caring environment of high expectations that prepares every student for a successful future and instills the value of learning.
Okay, thank you. Next item is election of board officers for 2021. So at this time, I will ask for nominations for board officers. Any member of the board may nominate any other board member. Nominations do not require a second. I will call for nominations 3 times to ensure that every board member wishing to make a nomination has ample opportunity to do so. After the third call, if there are no further nominations, I'll close the nominations for office. Any questions? Nope. We only do this once a year. I sometimes forget. So, nominations are now in order for the office of board chair. Are there any nominations for the office of board chair?
I'll make a nomination for Sharon Rupp for board chair.
Sharon Rupp is nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of board chair? Are there any other nominations for the office of board chair? If there are no further nominations, nominations for the office of chair are closed. Sharon Rupp is the only candidate nominated for the office of board chair, and I hereby declare her elected by acclamation and direct the acting clerk to so record in the minutes. Nominations are now in order for the office of board vice chair. Are there any nominations for the office of board vice chair?
I nominate Sonia Peterson for vice chair.
Sonia Peterson is nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of board vice chair? Are there any other nominations for the office of board vice chair? If there are no further nominations, nominations for the office of board vice chair are closed. Sonia Peterson is the only candidate nominated for the office of board vice chair, and I hereby declare her elected by acclamation and direct the acting clerk to so record in the minutes. Nominations are now in order for the office of board clerk. Are there any nominations for the office of board clerk?
I will nominate Dawn Odegaard for board clerk.
Dawn Odegaard is nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of board clerk? Are there any other nominations for the office of board clerk? If there are no further nominations, nominations for the office of board clerk are closed. Dawn Odegaard is the only candidate nominated for the office of board clerk, and I hereby declare her elected by acclamation and direct the acting clerk to so record in the minutes. Nominations are now in order for the office of board treasurer. Are there any nominations for the office of board treasurer?
I nominate Jeremy LeBlanc.
Jeremy LeBlanc is nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of board treasurer? Are there any other nominations for the office of board treasurer? If there are no other further nominations, nominations for the office of board treasurer are closed. Jeremy LeBlanc is the only candidate nominated for the office of board treasurer, and I hereby declare him elected by acclamation and direct the acting clerk to so record in the minutes. Okay, thank you, everyone. Next item is part of our board organization and committee memberships for 2021. I believe on board book we've got who the current members are.
Yeah, and just because they're listed there, people can shuffle around a little bit. That's just gives you a record of where things were at. If you have questions about the duties and responsibility for the majority of these committees, we meet quarterly. Duties and responsibilities are a little bit different for each one. So negotiations, we have 2. Ideally, that's a pretty big, there's quite a few negotiations meeting. That's one that, no matter what, every year there's a lot of meetings. So those people,
I've been on this committee before. I'm willing to step into it to help out on it since I have some experience, unless somebody else would like to do it.
That would be wonderful. Okay,
So the negotiations would end up being Sharon Rupp, if there's no objection, Jeremy LeBlanc, and then Don Odegaard. Finance, we actually have 3 people returning on that, but again, if someone wants to move off of there, this is your time to speak up and we can seek a replacement, or we can stay constant.
I'm fine with being on that yet.
I'm fine with that one, too.
I'm fine with it.
Jeremy? Okay.
Policy Committee, Jeremy LeBlanc has indicated that he would be willing to step off there. Right now, we have Sonia Peterson and Jeremy LeBlanc as the sole members of that.
If someone else wants it, I'd be fine with stepping off as well.
I can hop back on.
Okay, so Sharon Rupp is on there. We also have another vacancy.
I could join that committee.
Okay. So that means that the Policy Committee will be Sharon Rupp and Matt Semple. Building and Grounds, remaining on there from last year. Doesn't mean that you can't decline it. Our Ron Winter and Amanda Lisi, we do have, this is another one where it's nice to have 3 people on it.
I'd be willing to get on building and grounds.
And Jeremy LeBlanc has indicated, so barring any objections by anybody, those 3 people, Amanda and Ron, you okay staying on there? Okay, provide some continuity. MVCC Board, currently right now it's Sharon Rupp, Amanda Lisi, and Ron Winter. All 3 of those people are still here. Any objection to staying on there?
I'm fine with that. Yep.
Okay. Merved Board, Sonia's on there now. Do you meet quarterly? Is that what it is right now?
I do believe so. Sue was on that one, so I just took over after she came off. And it's only been 1 meeting for, I want to say in the last 6 months, but I do believe it's quarterly because I think they canceled the meeting last time. So
Okay.
that's what I believe anyway. Right.
And just so you know, superintendents are, rather than, there not always being a superintendent representative there, we're going to rotate that through, so all of us will be there at some point.
Good to know.
But if you have questions about that too, don't be afraid to
Okay,
reach out.
thank you.
Yep. Minnesota State High School League representative, I believe it was you last year, wasn't it, Jeremy?
Well, I thought it was Jeremy Corner, but
Maybe it is. Maybe I had it typed wrong on my document. So, okay, so then we do have a vacancy there in the Minnesota State High School League representative. Not as active as it used to be, but you never know. From time to time, it's nice to have somebody that's knowledgeable in Minnesota State High School League that might provide some recommendations to the remainder of the board. Usually Tim and I, whether they're not always the same recommendations, Tim and I, because I take it from a superintendent's perspective and he takes it from an activities director perspective. But, so that position is open at this point.
I would take that.
Okay? Any,
Thank you, Ron.
okay? We can only have one in that position. So, MSBA liaison, last year it was Sharon. I have no idea what they do.
I'm not so sure either. I did
I'm
ask.
guessing it kind of landed on the board chair's lap the majority of the time? No?
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily,
Okay,
No.
so it's not.
but, yeah.
I have no idea. Did they maybe communicate with you additionally?
I think it's just a name next to a item.
Put it on your signatory
I
at the end
guess
of
I
your
didn't-
email?
I didn't remember there being very much.
No.
I guess.
I think I just kind of keep up with, the MSBA.
Legislative things?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
MSBA thing, and
Wow.
what they're working on, and
Indian,
I'm fine with doing it
I
again.
mean, I can
unless-
do it if you want to
Yeah,
break
that's
from
fine.
committees, because you've got several.
Yeah.
so you're going to put Dawn on there?
Yep. No, I can do
Dawn?
that.
Okay?
I did ask at the conference last year, and I never really got a good answer other than, just
Okay.
report to the board if MSBA is.
So Indian Parent Advisory Committee last year was Jeremy LeBlanc. I believe you only served on it for about 6 months, right?
Yeah, I assumed the role after Sue left the board.
So generally speaking, those are monthly meetings.
Mhm.
They start at 4. Of course, now they're virtual. So it's a big part. That's a big part of our community. Almost 20% of our student population is represented by that group. It's a requirement both federally and in our state. So, Jeremy, are you willing to continue?
I would continue, but I do have a lot of positions, so if somebody would want to have it, I would let them.
Some of it is the flexibility to be at those meetings. The majority of those meetings at 4 o'clock. And
Do they have a certain day of the month that those meetings
yeah,
are?
I think it's is it the second Wednesday of the month? Because it's coming up this
Oh.
Wednesday.
Correct, yep.
I mean, I could do it, Jeremy, if you,
I mean, if you don't want to do it too, I'm open to it. It doesn't matter.
That would be fine.
Okay.
go for
All
it.
right.
I don't want
John Odegaard, because I think he's right. He
Yeah.
is he's
Yeah.
I don't want to be overloaded.
shouldering quite a bit here.
Yeah.
And I
do
assume
it,
he's
but I
still got some
really
passion
just-
for technology.
What's that?
So,
Yeah.
I'm assuming you still have some passion for technology.
Yeah.
Then technology is Amanda and Jeremy. So we would have one more available there.
I'd like to join that committee.
That's kind of up your
Yeah.
alley.
Excellent.
So,
Okay.
so, and then one more thing I added on there, it's not on the committee, but we have incident command team. In the past, it was Jeremy, and Sonia. Obviously, Jeremy Corner can't represent the board. We can have up to 3. We don't want 4 because we'd have a quorum. So if you have interest in that, now's the time to speak up.
I have interest in that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So Thursday nights, mark your calendar.
They
Okay.
meet every Thursday? You guys meet every Thursday night?
Just about every Thursday.
Okay.
We took a brief hiatus for 3 weeks over the holidays, so. And understand that that's an incident command team, and just for the new board members, remember that group only makes a recommendation to me, and then the resolution we pass is that the responsibility for that decision for the learning model is mine, unless, of course, in consultation with the board chair, unless, of course, at a board meeting, you override any of those decisions. So, of course, you're the board, you govern this district, you can choose differently than what the incident command team is doing. But I think we have a pretty good representation on there. We have sometimes some tough conversations. Hold our feet to the fire.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for stepping up. Item number 8, public address to the Board of Education.
We did not receive any that wanted to be read. I'll comment on the one email we all received today during my report.
Okay. Next item is consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
Motion by LeBlanc to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 10 is reports. We'll start with the Yellow Medicine East Middle School High School Board report from Mr. Luft.
All right, good evening. Welcome,
evening.
Board Member Zempel, and welcome back, Board Member Odegaard. It's good to see you. Good evening, everyone. As I stated last month in my report, as we concluded 2020, now we start to plan for the year 21-22. So I've shared with you our student registration guide that over the last 3 months I've been working with staff to look at the current offerings, but also too, is there anything else that we want to move forward to offer next year? Everything should be in there in a file. There is a red line master, or you should be able to see some of the suggestions on the side. A lot of them are in with our CTE area. As you know, in the past I presented on that we do a 2-year rotation on a lot of our CTE classes, just to make sure that we're able to offer a wide variety of opportunities to our students. The only real major change that we had, as many as you know, as we entered this school year, the 2021 school year, it was very late when we got the construction careers teacher to come in, so we had a hard time offering to build a house. We've been trying to go out, and we worked as a collaborative with MRV CTE, and I know Mr. Schneider has been involved in that as well. We are looking to see if there is interest, just because, as you know, every 2 years we do offer to look at a house. Our intent so much is maybe not to build a house like we have in the past in the parking lot, but to continue to work with the local EDAs and or other people for projects to get our students out into the communities to get some hands-on experience with remodeling in there. Last year when we had done this with the EDA director here in Granite Falls, we had about 13 to 14 people that were interested in a variety of different projects. Like I said, unfortunately, with the teaching hire late in the year, we were not able to fulfill all of them, but as we are going to do with our MRV CTE, just as a refresher, the MRVCT is a collaborative that we do out at Midwest. It's Yellow Medicine East, RCW, Lakeview, and Montevideo. We all work together to offer career and tech ed, which, as you know, is high pay, high demand in our area. Some of the other things I have just on my report here are just some classes, new classes. MERVED, our education district, we are going to add Intro to Business, which is a PSEO class online, and also Introduction to Entrepreneurship. Both of them are offered by Minneota. And also the Introduction to Engineer Design and the Computer Aided Draft, CAD, which are classes that are added by Lakeview. Those are all through MRVCTE. So what we have is a block schedule in the morning time for us as schools to work together to provide the opportunity to them. And then some of the deleted classes, when you work in a collaborative, sometimes they fly, sometimes they don't. Both of those classes were offered by Lakeview, and they will not be offered them in the future. Timeline for registration, student presentations. We go through and make sure the registration guide is ready to go for students, parents. We have the forums to update. We come back in February and we hold the presentations to the kids. Registration starts in March. Usually we do it with our student-led conferences. Finalize the schedule in April, and then in late May the students are able to get their schedules and hopefully any corrections or anything to be made in there. So any questions about the registration guide or the process? Okay, if you do have any questions after, it's just like anything when I talk to parents or to kids. If there's something that you think about, please feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email to do that. Once again, as you know, just one thing that has come across in the last couple of months, Tammy Eisfeld, who is our art teacher down there, not only very talented as an artist, but also very knowledgeable how to continue to reach out to local organizations to acquire money for our students to do projects. So her latest SMOC grant is awarded for $4,000. Is actually a resident artist will be coming in, and the students will be creating items that actually have a direct tie into geometry. So they're looking at angles and a variety of different things into it. This actually aligns with our goal here within the math of increasing our math scores. So in there, as we know, not everyone loves all classes. Some are stronger than math and English, some are stronger than English than math, and vice versa. In here, the nice thing is the hands-on opportunity for students to strengthen their math skills. So in here, she will be presenting. I know I've been putting together the POs for the residency, but that will happen this spring. Once the project's in, I will be bringing more pictures to share with you. Also, too, Ms. Eisfeld shared recently, they held a virtual Southwest West Central photo competition. And I want to say congratulations to Gracie Cleveland, Allie Steffen, Angela Padilla, Rebecca Donner, and Jordan Jerkasett. You can see some of their work that was presented in there. Moving on, at the end, we still continue on with the November Students of the Month. We want to recognize the 6th grade band and choir, Hannah Bjorndal, Harley Labatt, Callie Santarud, Courtney Schenken, junior high band and choir, Claire Shackelford, Jesse Smith, McKinley Embretson, and Liam Hatfield, and the high school band choir, Derek Lean, Bailey Day, Sophia Poff, Patrick Herneman, and Cody Dolliger. The last thing I want to discuss is I was talking with Mr. Schneider today, and just to outline kind of some of what it would look like if we move to bringing back all of the high school. As I've shared at the incident command team, we were given the charge as the building back in December to come up with a plan. Like I said, is coming in. It's been outstanding having kids in the building. High school kids miss their friends. The middle school is very energetic. They're back in the normal. High school kids are appreciative to be back in, but you can tell something's missing. So we kind of talk about the high school on mono right now. They're going around. They're very appreciative to come in. Their question, very respectfully, Mr. Leff, when do you think our buddies are coming back? I said, well, we have a plan. It's a matter when we get the call, we'll be able to do that. As I've shared at the ICT team, unfortunately, just like the middle school, we don't have enough room to fit all of our kids into their traditional classrooms. So kind of the plan that we have is some of our colleagues around us are looking at like an overflow room. So what we would do is any kid that wants to come into the high school back in, if, like, for an example, I'll use Mr. Schulte. Mr. Schulte has 18 seats in his classroom at 6 feet apart. That he might have 24 kids in his classroom, 2 of them might be distance learning, so we're looking for a spot for 4 kids. So looking at that, by able to get them in, what we would be doing is looking at an overflow room. So we would work with our kids that are having some success in the class, maybe some success in the virtual classroom, to look at to see if they'd be willing to go every other day, to be able to be on campus with their peers. In looking at the schedule, we wouldn't identify, like, for an example, my own daughter. She wouldn't be that one kid all the way through all 8 periods. We would work in every individual class that we would look at for kids to report to an area such as the little theater, or there's some other rooms open during the daytime. So once we get the nod too, if we decide to bring back the high school, we would identify those kids, let them know prior to the week that we're going all in. In here, we're going to ask a couple of you to see, would you be willing, if you had to go into an overflow room where they would still be on Zooms. With it, as we know, currently right now we are getting a few students back at semester break. I don't know the exact number of kids, but I know today there was about 6 or 7 that contacted us that are going to come back into the middle school or high school from distance learning. So once we get everything all figured out, is we will be able to work with those kids, and just like anything, we would work with passing time. We would meet the safety health protocols and whatever to do that. We have a plan with or without the auditorium. We do have the green light to start using the auditorium. We will start moving band equipment and choir equipment down there into the right after the break on the 20th. To do that, we are, from what I hear, unless Mr. Schneider's heard something different, right now the seats are not usable. So we will put markings on the floors at 6 feet apart. We will have to, right now the band kids stand all hour anyway. Ms. Castiglione said it's too short a time, we got things to do, they don't sit. So if the choir would go in there, we would be able to use that area. We would put chairs in there, just like they do now in the auxiliary gym or in the concession stand area. They would stack the chairs up and down before they get in. As we know, many of you know already, we do already have dance in after school right now. So just as that plan is presented, right when our numbers were really high, if you remember that, we do have a plan too to reduce even the middle school down to a 50%. If it would be just like the high school on the AB. So we have lots of plans available. We're just ready to, whenever we get the nod, we will get ready to work and do the best we can for kids.
Mr. Left, I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about identifying some students for the overflow room.
Yep.
Would that be a rotating cycle, or is it always going to be the same couple kids?
No, we would work with kids, obviously. Case in point, some kids say, can I do it for 2 weeks? Yeah. So the big thing that will happen is we will have a supervisor in there. So we will be working with someone to make sure that the kids are on task, doing what they need to do, that type of stuff. The thing that would happen is just like we do right now with our learning zone, when we bring kids in, we meet every week to make sure our lists are up to date. So if there's a student that says, you know what, I really enjoyed this week, but I really need to be back in the class, we'd go back and talk to that teacher to say, hey, Ryan had talked to me about maybe switching, and we would be able to do that. But we just want to make sure that when kids are on campus, we know where they're at and what they're doing. So
I'm still not sure I understand how you identify which students would go to the overflow versus staying in the classroom.
we would ask them first to say, hey, do we have any volunteers? If we could get everyone in, would someone volunteer to go on to be in
Like
with
a
your peers each and every day? We're guessing that a lot of it, when we looked at it, the overflow room max would be 25 because that's the largest area that we have that could fit that. And by looking at the number of high school classes, that's about the number of kids that we would need in there. So, like I said, some of it is we would ask the kids into it. If not, we would have to say, would you please be willing to do this for a short time? So,
Thank you for explaining that.
I have a question too, Mr. Luff.
Yeah.
You said you're waiting for the green light to get the go-ahead to do that. What exactly is that?
Whenever, I guess as what was talked about earlier, when Mr. Schneider says that we're ready to go,
Yeah, I think it will have to come from a recommendation from the ICT. What I want to continue to do is I don't want to be too quick to bring everybody back. I believe that you would like a couple days at the beginning of the semester to make sure your numbers are solidified, right?
We had looked at that, Mr. Schneider, and like I said, yeah, ideally, yes, we would always like more time and to do it, but if it was decided to, on a Thursday, that Monday we would be bringing them in, we know what we'd be doing Friday on the weekends, so.
So my question is, because I did unfortunately miss the ICT team meeting on Thursday night. At our last board meeting, it was said that, and I'm pretty sure I asked Mr. Luff too, we couldn't bring those 9th through 12th graders back every single day due to space, so that's 6 feet. So to me, how has that changed since?
Because our county numbers and our staff and student numbers are that low.
So then the 6 feet, we could do in person every day and not the hybrid model?
Now, when you're in the hybrid model, you can use they changed the wording to the best of your ability to get 6 feet.
They did, okay.
Because you look at a couple of our neighboring schools, there's no way they're maintaining 6 feet.
Okay.
All right. So
That was my question. What happened to that 6 feet space that we talked about?
And that's our ultimate goal. And that's what he's going to try and do by creating the overflow room. And even in our elementary, it's very tight to get that 6 feet. I mean, we know that, but as long as we're taking some additional precautions elsewhere, maybe some other things have to give to be able to get them back in here.
And some of
So-
that's on you too. We've learned a lot since the summer when the planning happened.
Oh, yes. I'm sure.
Into that too is, like Mr. Schneider said, is in here, we went on distance learning in November 1st. So the students coming back last Monday was the first time that they were on campus, which is, we said to everyone, welcome to the first day of school.
Yep.
So to come back in, so to kind of ease everyone back in to make sure our numbers are accommodated. I was just presenting, I recommend just presenting. We have the plan if we want to amp it up. We also have the plan of our current one to go a little bit, but I think the thing is I think like everyone, we'd like to try to keep our kids on campus. Kind of like what MDH and MDE said is what the elementary now is, let's keep them on campus as long as we can. We got to keep them safe. To reiterate too is our numbers look great right now compared to where they were, but right now is staffing is still an issue. Today I called a certain sub that I might know very well saying, help, can you come in and help today? And luckily they came in. So the sub pool for us is very small. We have 3-4 pretty reliable ones, and then after that, it goes down pretty quickly. So,
And we're trying to figure out creative ways to continue to get coverage, but remember, we have to have an adult in that classroom, at all times. So even if the teacher can teach remotely, we have to put an adult in that classroom. That's required. I mean, and that's the only safe thing we can do. I also want to be a little cautious in coming back, because what I heard this fall is people were frustrated with back and forth. What can we sustain? So want to watch that a little bit. I'm not saying we can't sustain it, but I want to be conscious of that.
Keep watching the numbers. They're going in the right direction finally, so hopefully they continue.
Yeah.
And some other things to update too, some things that have been talked in the past. Open lunch started this week. Big smiles by our sophomores and juniors to be able to get that. Lots of room in the lunchroom, so good for local businesses and out there and that type of stuff. So it was nice to do that. The other thing, senior privs will be starting here at the end of the semester. They'll get the application on the 20th. They will turn it in on the 27th when grades come in, and we'll be ready to do that as well. But with both the senior privs, but also PSEO privs, something we brought in last year that comes in. We have many PSEO kids that go out to the college and are college level and doing well. As long as they're in good standing, then we give them the priv for 2 hours rather than 1 hour for them for being college kids. So it's worked out pretty well.
I'm still trying to picture this overflow room. So you'd have this group of students that would be, say, in the little theater here, and they would still do Zoom for all their classes, but they would at least be on campus.
Yep, they would be on
Okay.
campus. They'd put their earbuds in to be
Yep.
able to do the Zooms as much as possible. To be in like such an area like in here. There are some rooms available around to be able to do the overflow room into it. But yeah, it would only work. We have to make sure into it. That's why we'd say it is the staff, once we get the lists and stuff, will start identifying, making sure they have earbuds to be able to come in, because they would have to come in here. In here, we could have as little as 2 or 3 classes going on at a time, but there is 1 times 6 period. There could be up to 4 or 5 classes going on at one time. So I wish every room was square. I wish the building was absolutely perfect, but you can go anywhere from 18 to 22 to 24 to 12. So every one of those rooms we've been in many times counting to make sure they're safe. And we go on the side of caution too.
Sure.
You know, we get a lot, hey, do you think I could squeeze 1 more in? No, let's make sure that we're safe in here to be able to do it. So
And the timeline potentially could be beginning of the quarter?
we got the plan ready. So like I said, we've went over this in December to look at it. I know in the past they've talked about the portables. We were not in favor of the portables into there, just with if we were to get portables, the kids going in and out of the building and doing that type of stuff. So we talked about it at length, and we voted and said that the staff overall was more in favor of an overflow room, which some of our neighbors have been doing into it. But like Mr. Schneider said, it needs to be supervised. There's a couple around that are not supervised, and they're not very successful. So we've identified staff to make sure that we can do it within our current staffing levels. So
And it wouldn't be every period for that same kiddo. So I might be
was my
in here
question.
for English, but whatever, Algebra 2, I'm in Mr. Jan's room.
So yeah, we would not identify one kid. Ryan, you are going to be, the other thing too is it would look different every other day. So that way, if I'm the first hour kid on an A day, on a B day, I would be in, there might be 3 or 4 other kids in that classroom who are in good academic standing and willing to do it, to be rotated out. So we would still run our A-B schedule just like our high school. So that way in there, in our current schedule, I might only be out of the calendar, or excuse me, out of the classroom 2 days first hour. And then maybe again 6th hour, and maybe again 8th hour.
So I just want to clarify one more question. The overflow room. So these children, you're going to ask for them to volunteer if they want to do this,
Yep.
and then they would be in the building for all 8 periods of the day, correct? It's not going to be like half a day, and it would be the whole day?
Yep.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Yep, and it works out lunch-wise with the open lunch, with the, we would have to go in the original lunch proposed, is we have 2 20-minute sessions. Our middle school works great. They are outstanding in it. They know they can't move ahead until the arrow in front of them is ready to go. High school kids are high school kids. Like I said, with the kids leaving out, we would ask the 9th grade to report to the upper part of the gymnasium for a little bit. Lunch is extended 4 more minutes, from 36 to 40 minutes. Once the 10th through 12th graders are through, which would not take very long, then the 9th graders would be in, and then after that, you would just see kids hanging out. Right now, in the gym area for the high school, we're maybe only using half of it. So we have half of the other side and all of the 40 seats in the cafeteria to accommodate, which we feel most in there. We had 26 kids eat the first day of lunch, and then we had 42 kids-ish the second day of lunch. So we should have enough room for everyone to come in. We're asking kids too to be mindful when they come back for open lunch. Bell rings at 1:25. Most show up at 1:25, ready to come in. So they've been good.
So I have a couple questions, but Rich, I think you probably want me to wait for your report as far as process of return, MDH, some stuff like that. Would you like me to wait till you talk?
Yeah, I have that in there. I'll explain it.
So then one other thing quick, Ryan. So obviously every class ain't full. I'm assuming there's classes where it's like 2-3 kids. I mean, what would you say the percentage of classes are that we're talking about? I mean, is it half of our classes?
Yep.
And I mean, obviously we all want to get creative. Let's face the facts here. And I'm going to flat out say it. I have a senior daughter that has been in school 12 days. And if there's classes that there's ways to be creative with, I want to make sure that I ask that to you right now. And I'm not going to lie, I mean, obviously next quarter I think she's got 1 hour she's in school, but she really wants to be in school for that 1 hour to spend that time of her senior year. So
First hour currently, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes that would need some kids to move. Second hour, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fourth hour, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth hour, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's our largest one, as I stated. 1, 2, 3, sixth hour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6, seventh hour, and 6, eighth hour. So like I said, some of them are over just by a couple numbers, not a lot right now. So like I said, it's going to be a hodgepodge of 2, 3 here, 2, 3 here, 1, 2, 3 here, 3 here. But like I said, our intent would be to try to get them as much as possible and not to ask a
Right.
kid, unless they said, you know, I'm fine sitting in the overflow room. We have some kids right now that are coming in on their off days in our internet cafe saying, you know what, I'm okay just getting the class here Zoom, but I need a little support to be able to work. So
I'm just trying to find a way. I mean, if we're talking, 2, 3 kids, I'm not saying you can push them any further in the corner, but how creative could we get with 2 kids? I'm just trying to,
You mean in terms of using different rooms?
well, not necessarily trying to use different rooms, but trying to look at my 6-foot space, or as you said, to the best of our ability. If we're talking 2 kids, how do we justify the best of our ability if we're pushing 2 kids out? If we're that close,
I'm going to guess that capacity is already to the best of our ability.
okay.
Yeah. Because 6 feet, what does 6 feet mean? Is that the center of mass, 6 feet to Amanda's center of mass, or is it 6 feet space? It's supposed to be 6 feet space.
Right, I'm just trying to ask those questions, so.
Yes, I have reservation about the selection process of who goes to the overflow room. There could be some children you ask that say, you ask, could you do this? And they don't really want to, but they may not have the confidence to say no to authority. So I'd like to be really careful of just thinking that volunteer system is going to work.
Yep.
I'd like a little more organization to that process than just winging it.
Yep. Internally, we had looked at kids in good academic standing, the kids that have shown success with distance learning. To do it, that's the way we would look at first, to say if they have all their work in, good attendance, getting good grades, would you be willing to look at that? So those have been kind of the conversations we've had, is that, so.
Okay.
And I think just to piggyback on what Jeremy's saying is that, and I know it's going to be a dance to try to figure it all out, is that it's not the same student every day, all week, every week, because the whole idea of bringing them back is for the sense of community in school and meeting their friends and sitting in the classroom. And so even though they might be in good standing, I worry about their mental health, I worry about all of that part of it.
That's why I think the rotation, I
Yeah.
thought that was a good suggestion. And also too, the main thing, we looked at the AB rotation, so they would be in with their peers at
Right.
least every other day.
Yeah.
to do it. So, no, if you have any suggestions or ideas, I mean,
So explain to me what you mean by AB. I mean, if they're back, what are you saying? I
we
mean,
would look at 2 different rotations of kids to potentially be out. So if we had a Algebra 1 class and we're over by 3, we would see, are there 3 kids on an A day that would be willing to report and 3 days on a B day?
Sure.
Our kids are very used to AB days because of our middle school schedule.
Sure.
So they're familiar knowing today I got FIAD, tomorrow I got health. So now with it determined that Fridays with us having virtual learning, A days are Monday and Wednesdays, B days are Tuesdays and Thursdays. At least I can build a schedule and put it on there so they know, so there's a little more consistency. It does get to be hectic when that always continues to changes. We want to know where our kids are at as far as where they're going, who's supposed to report, and things like that. So
Do you feel because of how we're running this that we're forcing more kids into full-time college classes right now? Do you see a trend?
there are some that, as seniors, that have said that. I would say that in some conversations. The number of kids taking college level classes, I would say would be about the same, but there are a few more that are choosing to do more full-time online. And if my personal opinion, talking to them, I think it would be because of their senior experience into it. There are just some saying if we don't get this, and we don't have this, then you know what, I might as well go gobble up some credits and go out there. So, and that's only really from 2 conversations that I've had with some kids of doing that. So, I mean, we typically have 1 to 3 kids that go full-time PSEO every year, whether it's down to Marshall or at Midwest here in town.
So those numbers of so many per hours of, were those extra classes that, or classes that you had extra kids in that you need to find an overflow for, or was that the number of kids per hour?
It's just so like for an example, our Health 10 first hour has 30 kids in it.
Okay.
So in it, a room like this, with the side, with kids sitting in it, could get about 25 into that. Originally, is in Mr. Laum's room, we do get 30 in there. It's tight. But that would be an example. In here, we don't have enough space. Right now, it works perfect with the AB schedule because only half of the kids are on. Now we would look at a couple kids that would have to rotate out on an every other day basis to be going out to find a spot big enough to fill them, because even here the little theater's not big enough due to spacing of the seats and everything into it to do it.
So how many students per hour of the day would that affect?
Are you talking the number of classes?
No, the number of students.
I don't have the total number of students down. I have the classes that are identified over their break of it. I know the combination of it is less than 25 as a combination of those classes together would be less. I don't have those numbers right in front of me. And in it, they would change based on schedule changes still happening. So the numbers would manipulate because the high school is still changing their schedules for second semester.
So I'm thinking there are multiple classes that would have an excess of students that would be able to fit in that particular classroom.
Let's take fifth
So-
hour hypothetically here. At fifth hour, I think you said 6 classes would be affected?
Yeah, so biology, creative foods, college prep writing, English 3, English 1, and U.S. history.
But we don't know the number of students that would affect.
I know,
Okay.
Jeremy, that just underneath it in there is based off the number of kids. Like for an example, I know Robin Osleson can get 18, Jake Suter can get 22. Creative foods, based on the 2 rooms, we could probably get them all in, but within Amy's room, I think it's about 18. Plotchek right now has 14, Plastic, excuse me. Hafer right now is up to 18, so I know roughly like that, but I don't have those numbers in front.
So we could potentially be talking anywhere from 20 to 30 students per hour affected by this.
That the cap was ideally is 25, because that would be the largest that we could get into, the overflow room. So
Okay.
just crunching some numbers into it, that's what we had looked at as an overflow room.
And being on campus, would you allow for them to have contact with their teachers if they had questions, say after the hour?
Yep,
During transit time, so that would give them
yep,
some additional access face-to-face if needed?
yep, as well as on Fridays. So as you know, and Matt maybe into it, we do have some kids coming in on Fridays already through our learning zone for those kids that we're helping with makeup work and that type of stuff. So Yeah, with the main goal of getting into it is getting the kids on campus. That is the best plan that works as far as them keeping in the building and to using them. As I shared with Mr. Schneider, if we're looking at portables outside into it, we would have to look at up to 5 or 6 portables outside in a parking lot where kids would have to walk out the doors and go out there to those to try to find areas that fit them all to be able to get in to there. And the average square footage wise was, I believe, about 600 square foot we would need each portable to be to get kids of 28 into a classroom. So that's 28 and a teacher, plus we would need technology out there as well. So projectors, boards, TVs, whatever we decide to go into it. So kids want to, I would feel the kids want to be here on this building. That would feel the most natural to do it. So
Well, my feelings with that is, it's not like all day long, okay, this kid is going to go in the overflow. I mean, if I'm hearing this right, there's a good chance you might be in the overflow room for
Hour.
1 or 2 periods
Yep.
at the most, and you'd still have the rest with your peers.
Yeah.
Which I think would definitely be worth the chance. And then there's always the what if the numbers keep going down, this overflow might not be a permanent thing. So I think we have to look at it. We have to use it as an option. And definitely, to me, it's very promising to try to get us going. I mean, if you tell a kid that, you know, you're going to probably sit in the overflow room for 1 hour a day, and you'd be with your peers the rest, I think most of them would say, bring me back, I'm ready to go.
I would
So-
agree with that.
So with this idea, you would still do the A/B Monday through Thursday, and then Fridays they'd be at home?
Correct, unless, right now, I believe for the rest of the year, that's the way the calendar looks at.
Okay.
Is there, we still have kids distance learning, so like I said earlier, Amanda, we've gone from 1 to 2 ITV rooms to 30 of them. Where
Yep.
our kids are, our teachers are still talking and collaborating, and there's still a number of kids, I believe the last time we looked was anywhere between 50 and 60 kids that are still distance learning,
Okay.
so.
So and I'm going to talk about that too, just, I think what you're saying is Fridays would still be a half a day of teacher prep, which is required. And then the other half would be distance learning or virtual learning for the student. So other than the students that are brought in separately, there wouldn't be students in our building. That's still called a hybrid model.
We're just tweaking it a little bit, maybe.
Well, that's what our hybrid is for our elementary
Yeah.
and middle school right now.
Yep.
We're just making a change in our definition of hybrid model for our high school student.
So if there are more questions, like I said, there probably will. Feel free to email me, and I'll get back to you with the best information I can. The last thing I just wanted to share, and it just popped in my head here, I really want to send out a special thank you to the STING students, staff. Excuse me, this is pretty emotional. Granite Falls Ambulance, the last week we've had a couple major medical emergencies here where we've had to have the ambulance. Just want to thank these people that dove in, did the best they can with both. We've had, like I said, we've had 2 of them. They're calm, they're cool, they're collective. Not only the YME staff that show up first and to make sure they assess the situation and to get everything taken care of, but the Granite Falls Ambulance. We love to see them. It would be better if we were at Western Fest during the brat feed rather than in the building, but we're very thankful for their commitment to come in and help our kids and our staff. So, okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
And next is Burt Rainey Elementary Report, Mrs. Hanson.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Dawn and Matt. I have a couple things on my regular report that I would like to touch on, and then, Sharon, if it's okay, I'll just move right into the dyslexia information.
Please
Okay?
do, yeah.
All right, first of all, I want to touch base on Burt Rainey's return to learning. As all of you probably know, our pre-K2 started last Monday, followed with our 3 through 5th grade, joined them on Wednesday. And I will just have to say that Wednesday and Thursday were phenomenal days at Burt Rainey. I've described it to many that in all my years of education, it was probably some of the most feel-good days that we've had. You start to really appreciate hearing the laughter down the hallway and the giggles and just seeing basic things like kids just visiting with each other. And they were so happy to see us, and they were happy to see their classmates. So it was a great week at Burt Rainey. I also did link our hybrid learning plan, which I know you've all seen, but just in case you wanted to take a look at that again, it is linked there. As far as our distance learning students at Burt Rainey that have elected to be full-time distance learners, we are now down to 18 students. We have had some that have returned, and I believe we have at least one more that will be returning in a week. All of our parents have received a letter that was sent out to the distance learning families, basically saying, you know, just a reminder, we'd love to have you come back if it works for your family. If you're interested in having your full-time distance learner join in person, please contact us and we'll help with the transition. Also wanted to share a couple really fun things that are happening in our physical education classes with Mrs. Gray. I asked her to give me a description of some of the activities that she has planned for winter months because I know she has a lot planned, and so I'm going to just read her description. During the upcoming winter months, as weather permits, Burt Rainey Elementary's PE classes will be participating in sledding, winter walks, snow sculpting. Snowman families will be created on neighboring yards to uplift spirits. Winter obstacle courses on the practice football field. Snowshoeing, and our 4th and 5th graders will be cross-country skiing. Formation of snowballs, not to throw at others, but to practice underhand and overhand throwing at fixed targets. My hope is to instill in our students that winters in Minnesota are not an automatic excuse for staying inside and playing on devices, but instead it is the opportunity to explore activities that boost creativity, physical activity, and doing something kind for others. Many of our classes last week got to go sledding, and what we quickly found out was that for many of our students it was their first time sledding. So that added to the happiness as well. Wanted to provide a very brief update from MDE on the MCA tests that last year, you may recall, we did not give. They were waived throughout the state. I have had some contact with MDE because everything that we're getting indicates that it is full steam ahead with testing. And so last week I had reached out to them just for confirmation, and they did say the plan is to test this spring. However, there was some indication that that could change, you know, if administration, the presidential level, the commissioner of ed changes something, but right now they are giving the direction to Minnesota schools to start prepping for that. I did link our upcoming staff development days. Our schedule is listed there as January 18th and 19th. Our Little Stingers preschool, which as you probably may recall prior to COVID, we were full speed ahead, filled our sections, really excited about our programming. COVID has slowed that down. A lot of that, I believe, has come from the fact that if parents have to worry about where their 4-year-old is going to go, a lot of them, and I don't blame them, don't want to pay for daycare and pay for a spot at preschool. Throughout the year when we are in full-time distance learning, we do not charge tuition. So for example, in November, there was no charge to our preschool families. We still provide weekly activities and Zooms with the preschoolers, and I've been able to sit in on those. And if you ever want to see a lot of happy faces, if you can get a chance to watch 10 to 15 3- and 4-year-olds on Zoom, they are so excited to see each other. But we have already had our first meeting planning for 21-22, and our goal is to have all of the registration materials out for families to sign up and get registered by January 25th is actually our mailing date goal. So we are looking forward to getting that back up and going full force. So does anyone have any questions for me on anything on my report before I go into the next part?
I just have one small thing. So I know because we're streaming this through our YouTube channel, not everyone can see your report, and so not everyone can see what the Burt Rainey Elementary needs are. So could you just name those off, just in case someone out there is willing to step up and meet some of those needs?
Absolutely. And I think I'm going to start off by just saying, you know, a large thank you to the community who so many members are consistently supporting Burt Rainey and calling and dropping off things and sending emails saying, what do you need? But some of our needs right now on our list are markers, pencil sharpeners, watercolor sets, wide ruled notebooks. We are also looking for pants, not blue jeans, but like leggings or athletic wear, and also mittens and gloves. We currently have plenty of coats and hats. So thank you for that,
Yeah.
Sharon.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to give each of you an actual paper handout tonight because I have a lot of documents that I want to reference, and I'm going to be talking about our dyslexia plan at Burt Rainey and how that fits in, and there's a lot of moving parts, and I just think it will be easier if I can reference them when they're right in front of you. So first of all, I want to start out with what is dyslexia? There are numerous definitions of dyslexia. Some are basic and some are very detailed. However, for purposes of tonight, I am going to use the following definition. Dyslexia can be defined as an inherited condition that makes it extremely difficult to read, write, and spell in your native language, despite at least an average intelligence. One of the things that I'm going to start out with, and you'll have the agenda at the front of your packet, is the timeline of some events and activities at Burt Rainey and how they relate to dyslexia. I am going to go back to the summer of 2016. We were very fortunate to be able to send 3 certified staff members to Chicago for a 6-day, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. training. This training was for screening of dyslexia, screening tools, assessments, screening process, and school work samples. The 3 staff members worked with 10 to 12 different screening tools. They worked with accommodations, writing reports, scoring, and grading the screeners. I just want to note that Burt Rainey is very fortunate to have these 3 staff members with this training, as it not only benefits our special education students, but their knowledge also helps support other students and our staff members. Following the summer of 2016, Burt Rainey has had a number of training sessions related to dyslexia, with staff attending at various levels. Then came Minnesota Statute 120B-12, which focuses on reading proficiency no later than the end of grade 3, which is what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. Basically, what has and what is Burt Rainey doing to support this statute? One thing I want you to realize as we move through these documents is the plan is changing constantly. We are taking this plan very seriously, and in an effort to provide the best possible support for our students, We are doing constant revisions and changes to it as the plan moves forward. Just today, I had 2 meetings regarding dyslexia, and I have another one scheduled for tomorrow. And they are all about the process and how can we make this fit for our students' needs. Moving on with the agenda, going on to number 2, the statute in your folder. Towards the top, you have a set of stapled documents labeled Minnesota Statutes 2019. And in addition, you will see that I have flagged in pink an area that says, each school district must identify before the end of kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2, all students who are not reading at grade level. Students identified as not reading at grade level by the end of kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2 must be screened in a locally determined manner for characteristics of dyslexia. This wording is what has prompted this plan and the actions that are associated with it. When we wrote our plan, what we basically did was we took the statute that is in front of you, we literally copied and pasted it into a document, and then we started tearing apart each section to determine what is Burt Rainey's action plan going to be for that requirement. Moving on to the next item in your folder, I'd like you to take a look at the Burt Rainey Dyslexia Plan. That is the larger stapled packet that has a green and pink flag attached. This is our full plan, but within that plan, you will notice there are a lot of blue links that link you to other documents, most of which I included in your folder. When you take a look at this, if you note at the top, you are going to see a couple things. Last updated date, involvement in the plan, and official meeting dates. And dates not included are small group meetings or any one-to-one meetings that we might have with staff members. Another area of importance is the areas that need further development. Those are things that we are constantly coming back to. In a sense, it is our in-house to-do list, even though it is officially on our document, but it really just keeps us in check with what's going on. When you look at the plan, you will see 2 flagged areas, the green flag and a pink flag. As I noted, the plan is long, but the green flag from that point on represents what happens with kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. And the pink flag notes what is going to be happening for students in grades 3, 4, and 5. Now, when you take a look at this plan, like I mentioned, it is really complex. And so what we did was we took the plan and we wanted to create a flow chart. And so if you go to the next 2 documents, you're going to see, I always refer to them as our flow charts for the dyslexia process at Burt Rainey, but you're going to see a K2 flow chart and a 3-5 flow chart. The yellow flagged flow chart is for K2, and the one that is right behind it is for 3-5. And what I want to do tonight is I want to take you through not all of the scientific things necessarily in the plan, because you can read that, but I want to take you through a scenario of what this might look like for a student. And so we're going to go ahead and let's take a look at the dyslexia process for a student in grades 3 through 5. So tonight I'm going to be talking about Sarah, a 3rd grade girl who has been struggling with reading since 1st grade. Sarah's needs were initially brought to a title teacher who then started this process. Keep in mind that we are attempting to identify students who have characteristics of dyslexia because we cannot diagnose dyslexia at Burt Rainey. Sarah's name is now added to an internal spreadsheet, which automatically triggers a process that includes one of my assistants creating a folder and pulling all of the historical assessment data on Sarah and putting it in a folder. That folder is then given to our Title I staff. The Title staff member will look at the flow chart and will determine, following the flow chart, and you'll kind of notice how it goes through. But the first question the Title staff member would say is Is the child at grade level on the STAR reading assessment? Let's assume she is not. You then follow the next direction. Is the child currently receiving services that has identified a reason why the child may not be at grade level? It could be an ELL student who might be new to country. It could be a child that is receiving special ed services, at which point it would go to another group for review. And I just want to touch base on that. If it is a child that is currently receiving special ed services, the process still continues, but we added a step. It actually goes to our child study team, because those are our special ed staff members that work closely with that child, and they're going to be able to determine if the reason why that child may be getting special ed services, does it have anything to do with a possible dyslexia diagnosis. That will be for that committee, that group of educators to determine. So in this case, Sarah is not a special ed student, so we would continue on. Is the child at grade level as per the word study inventory? Now, what is the word study inventory? That is an in-house assessment that we use for our older students. Again, let's assume the answer is no. Sarah is not at grade level. So we now know she's not at grade level on the STAR Early Lit. She has not been identified as having some other reason why she maybe is struggling with reading, and she is not at grade level on the word study. What happens now? At this point, the title staff member, who I would just like to note is also a reading specialist, would seek out the classroom teacher for what we consider an informal interview or conversation about Sarah. They would discuss concerns, which may or may not include a parent concern, family history, as they may know it. They would also discuss strengths and weaknesses, tendencies of Sarah in regards to literacy and so forth. At this time, they would also discuss if the teacher wants to fill out the characteristics checklist on their own or with support from the title staff. So I want to point out that document to you. It's the very last one in your packet. And this is a perfect example when I talk about how this plan changes. So in the last month, we have had a few students go through this process, and we knew going in that we were going to learn as we go. One of the things that we discovered, if you take a look, first of all, this characteristics checklist is fairly massive. There's a lot of things on here. And so one of the things that we discovered was it needed to be more than just the classroom teacher, because they would look at that, and some classroom teachers may not know this information, especially this year when the children have been out of the building for 2 years. So it made us realize really quickly that we needed to go back to last year's teacher. We needed to seek out title staff members that maybe worked with Sarah in years prior. And so we have now added this informal discussion with the title staff and the teacher. And then the next piece is we will now be giving staff the option. They can fill that out on their own, or they can have assistance from either one of our dyslexia specialists on staff, or most likely one of our title teachers. And that way they can sit down and collaborate. And we've already seen the difference of someone filling that document out on their own versus filling it out when they're collaborating with someone else. And that was really interesting to see, because the amount of information that came to us when 2 or 3 people filled that out was much more significant than just one person. So this checklist gets filled out, and what we noted on the flow chart was a question. Does the student have approximately 50% concerns or more noted on the teacher checklist? I want to note that there are things on this checklist that our dyslexia specialists value, they have a higher value than others. And so we did not want it to be a black and white number, because there is so many things that go into looking at each of these situations that is the reason for the approximate. At this point, let's assume that Sarah had more than 50% and that those working with her to complete this really felt like she had characteristics of dyslexia. What now? So the first thing that's going to happen is, and it's the second blue box from the bottom, Sarah's teacher will be meeting at least quarterly with the reading specialist to identify interventions and instructional techniques that will support the student's learning. So now, in a sense, it's now two teachers sharing that responsibility. Our reading specialist is there to assist. I've already seen that in action. In addition, at this point, we also want to make sure that any other staff members that maybe need to know that Sarah has characteristics of dyslexia are informed. This also came up, that was an addition after we got started with this, because, for example, Mrs. Jan, our music teacher, said to me, she said, well, Mrs. Hanson, if a student is struggling with dyslexia and I'm expecting them to read music, I need to know. That was not in our original plan, so that's something that we've now added. I think a few things I also want to just point out, there is also a reality that, and I'm going to use Sarah as an example, third grade student. Our classroom teachers have 20 students in their classroom on average, some more, some less. And it would be difficult for that classroom teacher to provide intensive one-to-one reading interventions to Sarah. We do know that if it is basic interventions that the teacher can provide with other students in the classroom, that is going to be very manageable and successful. But we really have come to the conclusion that we are going to need to tap into our title staff to help with this, especially if it's a student that needs, for example, our Sunday program, which would be intensive, one-to-one, 20 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week. That would be really difficult for a classroom teacher to do with other kids in the room. We already have that. Our first situation, our first student is going to be experiencing that program with one of our title teachers later this week. So again, that was something else that we realized we needed to add. The title staff member and classroom teacher are going to be working very closely together to provide not only very intensive but documented interventions for the child. I want to touch on some strengths and some areas that we still need to work on. First of all, what is going well? I will say there are many things going well. We recognize that it is definitely a plan that we need to change as we go if we really want to serve our students in the best possible way. We are very fortunate to have a group of extremely knowledgeable and passionate teachers working on this plan, which include Mel Schulte, June French, Keisha Lawaji, Mariella Klaus, and Peggy Quam. We have also been able to seek input from numerous other staff members with a wide range of experience. We are also working closely with our school psychologists to ensure that there is a smooth transition with our special ed department to make sure that the process of a possible special ed referral and a possible identification of a child with dyslexia support each other and do not work against each other. And that is something that our school psychologist and I have talked about at length, just keeping each other in the loop constantly. If Sarah's on the list and she's not a special ed student, I still want our child or our school psychologist to be aware of that because Sarah could end up on that list. We have staff members that really want to get this plan right. We have people jumping in to test out new parts of the plan, brainstorming, replanning on how we can best serve our students. And I think, again, I just want to emphasize we recognize the plan is fluid. It is going to continue to change. Areas that we need to work on. We need to continue to update our flow chart because that really is going to be the piece for a parent or even for staff members that are not really deep into the dyslexia world, have that in front of them. It's easy to follow. They know what to expect, what comes next. We also need to work on our parent notification and the communication flow with parents. So in Sarah's example, we need to just fine tune. We have basic processes that we do to inform Sarah's parents, but we need to improve that. That's something on our list. We also need to gather a collection of resources, not only for our classroom teachers, but for parents. That is something that we're going to be working on. And I also need to note that the biggest thing for us down the road, I believe, will be staffing. The reality is right now we're maintaining what we have, but we have a large assessment period coming up that we will be able to really look at all of our students. As I mentioned before, I think the reality is that while our classroom teachers can offer interventions, if we do have a child that needs significant intensive interventions like working with the Sunday program, we are going to need to utilize our title staff to do that. What next? We are going to continue to update and tweak the plan as things progress. As I mentioned, each time we encounter a new situation, it creates discussions. In addition, we are definitely needing to organize parent resources. And I'm just going to share one frustration I have with MDE. I had an opportunity to do a live Zoom with MDE, and they have a dyslexia specialist, and that person in that position has changed a couple different times since the statute came in. And one of the things that I asked was, I said, does MDE have a list of resources for parents that is approved by the Department of Ed? As a mom, if someone were to come to me and say, your daughter has characteristics of dyslexia, I would want to know, well, what can I do? What should I be doing? As a school district, we're going to be able to provide basic information, but what we can't provide is if they want to seek someone outside of the district, maybe they want to go and get a formal diagnosis from a specialist. Right now, they do not have that list. And I've asked for that, and I do understand that they are a little bit hesitant in creating that because they're, in a sense, endorsing a specific doctor or an organization. But it also is difficult for us when we get to that point to not be able to say to mom and dad, here are some additional outside sources that you can seek, because right now that doesn't exist. I also just want to add that in all of my decades of being in public education, I have seen many MDE mandates and requirements. This plan, this need for our students is definitely at the top of our important list. We are going to continue to strengthen the plan and provide as much support as we can for our students. As I mentioned, I'm really lucky to have such a incredible staff that just want to get in and they really want to figure this out. And everybody's brainstorming, everybody's coming up with ideas. So a huge thank you to them as well for all their work. I know I've given you lots of information, and I'm hoping maybe you've written down some questions, thoughts.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
First is if a parent has a concern that their child has dyslexia, do you have a reporting process for them to report it for an evaluation?
Great question. We've had that happen this year. So initially when we wrote the plan based on the fact that we were going to use our spring assessment data to identify who those students were. But the school year started, and all of a sudden we had a parent request information, and they says, well, I really think Sarah may have signs of dyslexia, it runs in the family, what can you do? And it made us take a step back and realize that this plan isn't just something we do in the spring. So within the main plan, you'll see basically that this can now be initiated throughout the year. So if a parent comes in and we've had that, we walk through the same process on that flow chart.
In the previous district I worked or was part of, they utilized volunteers for some of the minor interventions from the community. Have you looked at doing anything like that? Using community volunteers to come in and aid with reading and some of the minor dyslexia interventions?
Not at this time, but the main reason for that, well, there's two parts. Number one, we're no visitors right now and have been. But let's pretend COVID didn't exist.
Right.
I'm not going to say we wouldn't look at that, but what we really need is that intensive intervention that's going to happen with a trained staff member. And we're always, looking for volunteers and support, but for this particular plan, we really need that ability to really dig deep on the program. Other questions?
So the screening, does that fall into our specialist, or who's doing the screening once we get to that?
So basically, there's a couple things. So I'm going to let's take a look, Ron. I'm going to look at the flow chart for 3.5. So this is how we are screening students. Now, are there official screeners out there? Yes. And we are really lucky because our 3 staff members that went to Chicago were trained in those screeners. It gets a little tricky because they are special ed teachers. And so if we were to use them for a child that is not identified as special ed, then we need to track their time and basically turn that in as gen ed. But to be very honest, they are a great resource. Oftentimes you might see a student that needs that screener and they may be going through a special ed eval, so it works out fine. We have had one instance where one of the teachers did a screener and it took probably 10 to 15 minutes, and that was added to this. The plan and that process is really written so that the purchased screeners do not have to be used.
So then the other question I would have, and maybe this goes to Ryan, what do we do once we go past 5th grade? I mean, how do we look at our older students that obviously have slipped through the cracks before we hit this?
Well, I think first of all, I want to say that I hope 2 years from now, those numbers have decreased significant.
Right. I mean.
I think the reality is there still will be some.
Right, but what do we do? I mean, I'm looking at, by the end of 3rd grade, having kids reading by, 3rd grade or higher. I know kids in this high school, middle school, that are at that point.
Right.
So I'm just trying to put this all into perspective, that we make sure we're looking all the way out. So, I mean, I think this is great where we're at here. This is really nice to see, but we do have kids that have gotten through the cracks. And we want to make sure that we're watching and monitoring and taking care of that too. So.
Remember, Ron, we presented our literacy plan as well. We're in year 1 here. We did all of our Sunday program training this summer. We have 6 people trained as well in there. Also, we have some kids staff trained, take some kids in it as well. Especially with the first time with the extensive amount of writing and reading that she does in there to identify things like that. And we currently are implementing the Sunday program. I don't have the numbers right here, but we're using them within our special ed, but also 2 within the gen ed classroom. And some of our team teaching, like Mrs. Hanson said, once we got into it, we had the same adoption plan of waiting till spring to identify new. Once we got into it and saw where some of our students are at, we had to make the change right away. As you know, Mr. Lindstrom, Bill Lindstrom, is a first-year 6th grade teacher and is doing remarkable things by doing ability reading groups already. We're utilizing the adults within the room to be able to help with those interventions in place. So, as we said, we're in the same process into it, but like Mrs. Hanson said, the more time we go through it, we should do it. I asked area high schools around us who's talking about dyslexia screening. We were the only middle school, high school that actually has a plan as well as a program in place to help them.
Is there a process for communicating between the 2 schools?
Typically, when our 5th graders go over to the 6th grade, there is lots of communication on needs and if they're special ed or even if they're not, there are meetings regarding that. Other questions? Ron, any more questions?
No, I think I'm good for
Okay.
now.
Okay.
You referenced potentially needing more staffing resources moving forward. are there other resources? And then what, as a timeline, do you see those resources being needed?
Are there other resources? I'm not, what do you mean by that?
Whether it's materials or other resources that you need to make this plan work.
I think there will be some other materials that we will need. We're actually in the process of identifying some of those. I do feel confident that we're going to be able to take care of that in-house. As far as staffing goes, one of the things that we need to do is once we really take a look, because right now, the students that we're working with are students that a teacher has come forward and said, or a parent has contacted us. What we will be doing after our next assessment period is done is looking at the building, and that's when we're really going to get an indication of how many students need this, and then we're going to have to prioritize who can we assist. So I would say give us another month, and I think I'll have more numbers for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Any
Do you
other
have other questions on this? Please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hanson. Okay, next is district report with Mr. Schneider.
Okay, so saliva testing update tomorrow morning. We'll start with our first iteration of our saliva testing. It's mandatory that we offer it every 2 weeks, and we're scheduled for tomorrow. It would have been ideal to do it on a Friday, but the state tells you when you're going to test, and that's driven based upon the capacity of those testing centers. They're trying to manage the number of tests that are coming in. It's a saliva test. It's optional. Right now, or last time I checked, I believe there were 64 people that had indicated they would take the test, but bus drivers, even for Bennett and Bennett, can do it. Our part-time coaches, our volunteer coaches, they're really trying to look at anybody who has contact with our students on a regular basis will have available testing. We polled people to find out if they were interested in it, but even if they didn't sign up, we ordered 150 saliva tests just in case, because I knew that some people wouldn't take it. We have about, not counting Bennett and Bennett, we have 143 staff members, so I thought I would err on the side of having extra tests. So tomorrow morning will be our first opportunity for that. So
What's the turnaround time on getting those results back?
48 hours, they're saying, from when they receive it. So tomorrow night, we finish our last testing session, ends at 4:30. We'll package them up, take them down to the UPS distribution center. They'll take them from us. And so then within 24 hours, they'll be in the testing center, which is somewhere up in the cities. And then 48 hours from there, the person will get contact.
Pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully people have everything pre-registered on their smartphone to speed this up, but we'll see. It's the first time doing it for all of us, so maybe people will be patient. So EMC Site Logic meeting update. So I do have a meeting coming up January 21st to discuss things such as HVAC. I'm also going to bring up things about the curtains and also the seats. Just to give you an update, the reason I'm not using the seats right now is because we said they were damaged because they were wet, and so we were afraid that mold set into them. That's why they have to be replaced. Well, I'm a little cautious then in saying that we're going to use them. I don't know what the insurance company is going to say if they're adequate to be used right now, should they stay in the building. So be a little cautious with that. We'll get some quotes on those seats and try and get all of the seats replaced so they all match at the same time.
Is that a Zoom meeting again?
That will be a Zoom meeting, yeah.
Could you include me in that?
Yeah. Okay, put it. Well, if we get to the 20th and I didn't send you anything,
Yep.
don't reach out, or don't be afraid to reach out to me. So So this one's kind of organized by site logic because they want some answers, and I'm going to stay in the loop. We did receive another settlement from them, which is, it's called the depreciated amount. If you remember, depreciated amount means that there will be more if we do that work. All right, so it's just like if you have damage on the roof at your house, they give you an amount. If you fix the roof, then they give you the remainder of that amount. So that's how that works. So big numbers, so we're in the neighborhood of about 1.6 million at this point for that roof damage. I would only anticipate it's going to go up. So it doesn't seem like that much damage, but it adds up in a hurry. Change in learning models. So this is what we were talking about before. My question to the regional support team today was, are we really, is our high school really making a change in our learning model, or are we redefining hybrid? Because that will be the kicker on how much consultation we have to do. I haven't gotten an answer back yet on that. I expect I'll have that back tomorrow morning. I'll keep you folks in the loop. There is a process, though, if you want to change to go to a less restrictive, which would be in person and be less restrictive. Hybrid is more restrictive. There is a form that I have to fill out with the Department of Health, and they provide me with consultation. That consultation could be an email, could be a phone call, I don't know. This is all pretty fresh, pretty new to all of us. So, is that what you wanted to know before, Ron?
My biggest question, I don't want delays that we don't know about here. Is this something we can talk about? I mean, we don't...
Yep, that's why I reached out to them yesterday.
But
If you folks knew that we were going to, if you guys took action tonight, I would fill out that form and send it out. Tomorrow morning I may fill it out anyway based upon what they tell me. So
you're going to wait to see what they come back with, and then...
Yep, and then I'll send you folks an email, let you know what I find out. There's a number of questions on there. I had Denise look at it with me. Was it Friday or today? I don't know. But a lot of different things. What's going on in your community, etc.
The other question I would like asked is, I know they say 3 classes at a time, 2-week intervals.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're sitting with 4. Is it something to consider, the size of classes?
Yep.
As far as what we could bring back? And obviously...
I have that already pre-typed in there because I knew that would come up, so I typed that in there Friday morning.
Okay. So obviously, we all know every week that goes by, I mean, if they do state it the way it could be,
Yeah.
how far out we could be with getting our seniors back.
Well, there's 2 different angles I can take with that, or that I would argue with them about. Is number 1, we're talking a very small school here, all right? Number 2, we're not changing from hybrid to in-person. We're changing our definition of hybrid learning for our high school, because I would like to continue that Friday be a distance learning day so I can get that half a day prep in there. I know it'd be great to have kids in here 5 days a week, but they would only be here half a day on Friday no matter what, because of the requirement for preparation time for our staff.
So then the other thing with that, just say we get down to seniors, that they allowed us to do 3 classes. So say we brought back 9, 10, and 11. Do we know what the percentage of our seniors would be that would actually be in school full-time that are not either taking college classes or something outside that maybe could help with making this decision?
I'm sure we can figure it out. So we would need to know how many juniors and seniors are in PSEO.
Yeah, because the reason I ask, I mean, I use my daughter, for example. Next quarter, it's 1 hour. So there's got to be other kids other than just her, that if we're getting to that point, that maybe we could use that with our decision,
Yeah.
possibly.
I won't immediately land upon that. I'll land upon the idea that I'm really not changing the model. I'm hoping that argument will allow us the greatest flexibility.
So hopefully this is information we can have by Thursday night with
Yep,
the discussion.
that's my intent. It's important to note that today the numbers were even lower for both Renville, or for all three, Renville, Chippewa, and Yellow Medicine County. So things continue to improve and our student numbers stay low. So you did receive an email from a parent about their concerns about getting the students back very quickly, as fast as we can. So I want you to know that's not lost on any of us. We want that too. And then it was also noted by at least 3 people at our incident command team meeting our last Thursday. So Cindy Lowe announced at their last meeting that she will be retiring in the end of July this year. So we'll have to look at that. The superintendents have a meeting set up with her to kind of think about what would be a transition, what do we need for services, other options that we have. So eventually you'll get some more information on that. Health insurance bid, it's that year. Tara sure enjoys that all the time. A lot of work goes into health insurance bids. Getting that in there. It's statutorily required every 2 years. So there's the timeline, and we'll proceed with that. Sale of obsolete equipment. That survey did go out. Denise is also going to put it in the paper this week and next week so that people can still sign up. People can actually sign up for more than one device. They just have to go in multiple times to do it. We'll prioritize those. Right now it looks like we have plenty of devices, but we haven't put it in the paper yet. And you folks are eligible for that too. Games and Spectators, Minnesota State High School League, the Department of Education and the Department of Health all have put out the guidelines for that. 25% of capacity to a total of 150. Sports such as dance and boys basketball, that's going to be challenging for us. We will have a hard time bringing anybody in other than parents, 2 at a time. Sports such as girls basketball, being there's much less participants, will receive more tickets. We're going to try and get as many people in there as possible, but we also don't want to make it so burdensome that that's all Tim and Alyssa do all day long is continually work on that. We're going to do the best we can to get people in. We'll learn. It'll probably look different at the end of the season than it does at the beginning, but we're going to hold to that 150. We are lucky. Our district has a big gym, and so we have plenty of space to host 150. Technically, I can think of at least 3 gyms in the Camden Conference that if I took a tape measure in there, there's no way they're hosting 150 people. Because you got to have 12 feet from the contestants, the participants, on top of it. And then spread out, 6 feet between groups. So we'll take care of YME. That's all I can say. College entrance exams, they did open that up. We can begin administering them, such as the ACT, SAT, and PSAT. Legislative update, for those of you new or those of you that haven't really dived into that, I know you're getting hammered by MSBA, MREA, your legislators. Folks, it's one of the duties you have. You need to stay on top of that, maybe this year more than ever. I'm not saying you have to align with me or anything like that. I try and stay. on top of things, and I try and continue to advocate for our district. It means a lot to them, especially like Senator Dames and Representative Swedzinski. They like to hear from you folks, right? They get tired of hearing from superintendents. But doesn't mean I wear out. I try and pick and choose when it's really something important to me. So some of the big hot button issues that you're going to hear this spring will be broadband. We know that's an issue. We're one of the disadvantaged counties, I would say. Yellow Medicine County is at a disadvantage with broadband, probably second worst in the state. The constitutional amendment guaranteeing education as a constitutional right. Again, just watch that. Make sure you weigh in how you personally feel. And then I also want to talk a little bit about LIFO, last in, first out. That's been talked about a lot. I think it's going to come up as a hot button issue this term also. We know we're going to get some CARES funding. We don't know what it's going to look like and how it will be distributed. It won't look like the CRF money. It will be a separate budget from this year's budget. It helped us out a ton. It really, we're going to deficit spend, but we'd be, quite frankly, we'd be broke without it. So, and then the only thing I have left is mentor for Matt and or Dawn. I don't know if Dawn feels she needs a mentor or not, but it would be nice to at least identify somebody for Matt. So do we have someone interested in that?
I would be willing to.
Okay.
And I would be too, whatever you need help with.
Okay.
So, do you have, I have a document from MSBA about what to go over. Do you happen to have that too, Jeremy? Or?
I don't have it with me. I do believe you can get it off of
Okay,
their
because I
website.
have it here. I believe I have it here, so.
Okay.
And maybe
I'd
the
like
first
to
time what we'll do
that.
is set up a Zoom for all four of us.
Mm-hmm.
And Dawn, that's up to you. I mean,
I can certainly join. It never hurts to be current.
okay. All right. Your phase training is still good, by
Is
the
it
way.
still good?
Yeah. So, and Matt, I think you got through phase 1 and 2, right?
Yep, phase 1 and 2, and I signed up for the additional upcoming training in January, February.
Yeah, and there's officer training now too. I signed up for negotiations training. I do that every 2 years, just simply, it's great to refresh. So those of you on negotiations, if you want to sign up for it, let us know. Otherwise, they'll bill our district for it. You can sign yourself up. So, next month, you can expect the annual resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions. That's an annual requirement, but we will start talking about that at Finance Committee. All right? Thank you.
Yeah. And then speaking of other opportunities, there's the MSBA Leadership Conference that this year will be virtual. They took a poll and everyone decided that Thursday mornings were the best time that it was available for them, so they are going with 3 Thursday mornings in January starting this Thursday. So always a good speakers, good information.
So one other thing quick, Rich. So we're kind of at a standstill until you hear from the regional team as far as...
Not necessarily. No, if you folks say that we're coming back because you want to make a board action of it, we can do that.
Well, my question is kind of where I went to before. I mean, until we know where the Department of Health and stuff stands, where are we at?
Our numbers are good. I feel comfortable, but like I said last week in Incident Command Team, I would like to ride it for a little bit and see what happens if we do get any of what they claim could have been a post-holiday outbreak. I really was nervous that when we brought students back in the building, we had some hidden positive cases, and that has not happened. So that's good.
So is it my understanding the outstanding question is whether we're transitioning to a different model or if we're just redefining our hybrid? And if we're redefining our hybrid, then that changes how quickly we could transition to that new definition?
Correct. That would help us circumvent the 3 grades problem.
Okay.
That's my motivation for it. The speed of it, that's up to the incident command team and watching those numbers. That's my thought. That's my philosophy. Because I think they're watching the numbers. Those people are seeing them every week. There's a few of us watch them every day. So.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the biggest thing, if we're not changing the model, we're just altering it, that definitely should make things.
Well, I think that's the question he's got
Right,
posed, right?
which-
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to push at them. So even when I fill that out, no matter what they tell me by tomorrow morning, even when I think they'll respond by tomorrow morning. The Department of Health is getting slammed a little bit, and the saliva testing is a new challenge, and now we're getting close to the vaccine too, folks. And when I say close, the next month. I mean, that's close. So they're busy.
Any other questions for Mr. Schneider? Okay, then we'll move on to committee reports. Negotiations Committee met January 6th with MSEA. That was our first meeting. So we kind of just set the ground rules for that negotiation with them. We received their proposal. We gave them our proposal. We're going to go into executive session at the end of this meeting to discuss some of that strategy. Anything anyone else wants to add or questions? Okay. Then we'll move on to new business, personnel items. We have one leave request and resignation. Jim Ford, cross-country coach. Is there a motion to accept his resignation?
Amanda Lisiak.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second by LeBlanc.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item are 2 new hires. We need to approve the employment of cross-country coach Scott Jans and improve the employment of BRE physical education teacher Mary Gray. So is there a motion to approve those? Or do you want them taken separate?
No, you can take it.
Take them together? Okay.
I'll make a motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second by Odegaard.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second.
I have a question.
Any discussion? Maybe Mr. Schneider can explain what was going on with Mrs. Gray.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Mrs. Gray retired on Thursday of last week. We knew she had given us a letter of intent to retire. We opened the position up as statutorily required. After receiving the applicants and going through the process of reviewing those applicants, Mrs. Gray had applied for it, and she was determined to be the best candidate to complete the year.
Great.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is approval of Pact for Families 2021 Letter of Intent. And most of these next items are going to be our yearly approvals. So is there a motion to approve the Pact for Families 2021 Letter of Intent?
Motion to approve by Zempel.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second by LeBlanc.
Thank you, Jeremy. There's a motion and a second.
Yeah, the next
Any
one.
discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is approval of memorandum of understanding, notification of retirement incentive guidelines for teachers for the 2020 to 2021 school year.
So this we did last year too. What this does, this gives us a pulse of what we are likely to see in the spring in terms of retirement, so we can look at this as a finance committee and decide if we're going to make some cuts through attrition or if this is going to save us when we hire back some less experienced employee. The money comes from OPEB dollars, so it does not come from our general fund. OPEB dollars are levied directly. Last year we had one person take advantage of it.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for notification of retirement incentive guidelines for teachers 2020-21?
Don Odegaard to make that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second by Zempel.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is approval of Pupil Transportation Services Agreement with CMCS, which is Central Minnesota Christian, for 2020 to 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Amanda Lacey will approve.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Snyder, could you just clarify what this is?
So we have to pay for transportation to the border. And so this is the mileage, those students, so they have their own transportation. It comes to our school border. We have to cover the mileage for these students from that border to their house.
They're open enroll students?
Yes,
Okay.
statutory requirement.
Yeah.
So we do get funding for them too.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is a resolution to authorize signatory on board account number 40264 at Granite Falls Bank. Is there a motion?
Motion by Zempel.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Resolution is a roll call vote.
Yeah, we probably better.
Resolution is a roll call vote. Oh, thank you for reminding me.
Correct. Jeremy, is
Okay,
that what you said?
We usually do
Yep.
that. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. We'll go back to number 5. Resolution is, we try to do those as roll call vote. So if we can vote again, start with
Ron Winter, yes.
Don Odegaard, yes.
Amanda Lacey, yes.
Sharon Rupp, yes.
Sonia Peterson, yes.
Matt Zempel, yes.
Jeremy LeBlanc, yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 6 is a resolution to authorize signatory on payroll account number 40598 at Granite Falls Bank. And those names listed there. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Zempel.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second by Odegaard.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do roll call vote.
Ron Winter, yes.
Dawn Odegaard, yes.
Amanda Lisi, yes.
Sharon Rupp, yes.
Sonia Peterson, yes.
Matt Semple, yes.
Jeremy LeBlanc, yes.
Motion carries. Item number 7 is a resolution to authorize signatory on payroll account number 219030007 at F&M Bank, Clarkfield. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Semple.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll do roll call vote.
Ron Winter, yes.
Dawn Odegaard, yes.
Amanda Lisi, yes.
Sharon Rupp, yes.
Sonia Peterson, yes.
Matt Semple, yes.
Jeremy LeBlanc, yes.
Motion carries. Item number 12 is policy update. I believe these are just updates. They are not new policies. They're just updating our existing policies. Any questions on those?
Both of these were run through the policy committee.
Okay.
I just had a question on the tobacco-free environment when it talks about vaping, is the vaping device itself, are we also talking about anything that might be in the vaping device besides tobacco?
Yes.
It does cover that all?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have to in there because it's an illegal substance in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah. I thought it did, I just wanted to
The
clarify.
double whammy for the kiddo.
Mm-hmm.
But the addition here for that policy is the addition of the vaping awareness and prevention instruction, which we cover in our health classes.
Do we need to approve these updates?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the policy updates for policy number 419, tobacco-free environment, and policy 516, student medication?
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Amanda Lisi will second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. And then we have one discussion item that I added, Mr. Schneider's contract. Let me find my notes here.
Little background, in the state of Minnesota, a superintendent cannot hold a contract for more than 3 years, and this is still considered a year. So if you're so interested, the maximum you could do is 2 years.
So Mr. Schneider's contract, his current contract expires June 30th of this year. He has expressed desire to extend his contract with Yale Medicine East, so I'm going to ask the negotiations committee to start reviewing by his contract, and we'll send that out to the negotiations committee members, and I believe we've got a meeting coming up. So if there's any questions or anyone else has concerns, by all means email me, and the committee will review that.
Do you have a meeting scheduled, did you say?
Yeah, January 20th.
At what time?
And forgive me, I don't know the time. Leanne, do you remember what time the meeting was? What time the negotiations meeting was? No, the next one.
6:30.
6:30?
The MSEA wanted to meet at 6:30 instead of, I think we met at 4:30 the last one.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll have a pre-meeting at 6.
6. Zoom meeting. Okay, Zoom meeting at 6. Okay, I have to apologize. I missed item number 10.6, our celebrations and recognitions, my favorite part. I know Mr. Luft had presented some. Mrs. Hanson, did you have any? Could you just,
I don't see any.
does anyone have any on Boardwalk?
No.
I think they were on an earlier version, because I did see it, and I don't see it on this version.
Well, someone could pull those up and while I read Mr. Luff's submissions from the middle school, high school.
I will get them up.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So I would like to thank Francis Staub for continuing to make sure students are first here at the Hive. Francis and his team have worked extremely hard to get the auditorium area ready for usage and have taken the multiple different schedules and requests in stride. The winter athletic coaches and advisors, thank you to all who are ready to go on January 4th with all of the new guidelines in place for the students to safely return to play this winter. I'd like to recognize the paraprofessionals at the Hive, Ryan Schultz, Sella Johnson, Christy Rasmussen, Tabitha Jaden, Kelsey Sorensen, Barb Torkey, Shelley Weir, Amber Anguser, Mariah Weir, Taryn O'Hara, and Carrie Eichens for continued positive attitude and flexibility in covering the needs of our students, both in and out of the building during the first half of the school year. And we'd like to thank all of the staff at the Hive. I want to thank all of the staff for their holiday cheer as we ended the year that was 2020. It was an uplifting experience that we shared together as we headed into the new year with our students back in the building. Have you found those?
No, for some reason.
Mrs. Hanson, do you have them where you could read them off? Oh.
Just fun.
Just found them? Okay.
Want me to read
Mr.
them?
Schneider will read them, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you to Connie Tim for greeting our STEM students in full holiday costumes the week prior to our holiday break. Thank you, Connie, for continuing the tradition of your crazy costumes, even during COVID. Thank you to Cassie Suter for juggling the needs of students and their families, both in the building and distance learning, and for working through health concerns of staff members and often their own family members. Thank you, Cassie, for your hours of research and following up with the never-ending changes. You are truly a healthcare provider for our entire community. Thank you to Mary Gray for being so creative with her PE programming. She started off 2021 with sledding, but once the snow deteriorated and sledding was not a safe option, she got creative. Students then participated in creating snow sculptures that included a hair dryer, the state of Texas, bacon and eggs, and the state of Minnesota. Thank you, Mrs. Gray. Thank you to Tammy Caruth, BRE social worker, for being such an amazing addition to Burt Rainey. She is always positive, cares so much about others, and is full of fun. Thank you to Desi Gonzalez for always having a smile on her face, for always looking for the positive in everything. She has been working at StingCare and at BRE and always checks in to see how she can help support teachers. She definitely goes above and beyond and is such a pleasure to work with. Thank you to Teresa Lightfoot for all of her extra efforts behind the scenes in supporting our students. Recently, it was witnessed that she had spent over an hour of her day on a Zoom with an individual student who just needed to talk. Thank you for always giving so much to your students. And thank you to Angie Olson for making the transition into the BRE office seamless. You are an amazing addition to the BRE office crew.
Excellent.
And I don't know how I worded it, but I thank Leanne Boschek for her work on the audit and also the many hours and just the knowledge base that she has, because she bails me out quite a bit, so it's greatly appreciated.
Yep, we appreciate Leanne. Okay, thank you very much. So no correspondence. Our upcoming events, end of the second quarter, January 15th. No school for staff development, January 18th and 19th. I added negotiations meeting, January 20th. Policy committee meeting is February 1st at 5:30. Our next board meeting is February 8th at 6 p.m. Finance committee meeting, February 10th at 5:30. No school, February 12th. No school for President's Day, February 15th. Is there anything else? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the meeting adjourned.
We'll go into executive session here. So let's take a 5-minute break. You guys can use the restrooms, and then we'll come back and go into executive session.